Hello again. I'm back. Um, what I have done is set up a template in Blender 2.8 so that um, I can get some work done. So if you are someone who's followed my YouTube channel for some time, and by the way, that needs to be turned off. Uh, you know I've been really big on OpenTunes, and now here I am bouncing back to Blender Grease Pencil. And it's purely a pragmatic decision because my top priority is to create animation. And if I find myself battling with the software, which I certainly have with OpenTunes the last couple days because it's just hit the ceiling performance-wise or something and it's crashing a lot. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be using it. Doesn't mean I don't still love it. But it did bring me to a place where I said, well, maybe it's time to take a fresh look at Blender 2.8. I like what I see. So, with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and kill Blender 2.8 and jump back to 2.79 for a moment. Kind of show you what's going on. If Blender 2.79 wants to run. Okay. So last night, again, I didn't really want to do battle with OpenTunes, so I thought, I'm just going to do this pencil test for this one shot in the Blender Grease Pencil, and pretty happy with the way it came out. Now the problem is, I tried doing the link. I didn't try in a pen, but I did try linking this Grease Pencil data block into Blender 2.8, and it just caused Blender 2.8 to just poof, disappear, die. So hopefully I can make this work because I really like the way the shot came out. So in terms of workflow, what do I mean? When I say I want to be pragmatic, what I mean is that I want to set up Blender to do the absolute least that I need to be able to do to just crank forward and get work done. And so I'm going to show you what that means for me. Okay? Number one, when I hit my middle mouse button, I want to pan the view. I don't want to rotate it. Rotating is useful if I need to work in 3D, but I rarely do. And so I've got it set up so that Control Shift is what I use, and I guess I need to turn on my overlays if you want to see it, but I use Control Shift to actually rotate the view. So my default view is the front view. Usually I start out actually with camera view, just because it's we've got the framing. So so I set up these grease pencil layers in the template, which is a sketch layer, lines, fills, and shadows. That's it. Now in Blender 2.8, the stack here is what you see here. In other words, the shadows layer is on top. Well, that's what shows on top here. If I'm not mistaken, and actually I'm going to check this really quick. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that in Blender 2.79, it is the complete opposite. And I think making it the way they did make it probably is a good choice. Let's just see. I'm going to open this back up. So we got sketch here and we've got paint here. So let me just go ahead and hit the D key and draw a color and see what happens. Okay. So now if I take this layer and move it up to the top, it disappears. So indeed, Blender 2.9 looks at the grease pencil layers as a flow stack from top to bottom, and therefore what's at the bottom is actually shown in the screen on top. You can make a case for that paradigm. I guess all in all I would say that the choice to reverse that in Blender 2.8 was a good thing. It just seems more intuitive to me. Okay, so what I did was I set up shadows, sketch, lines, and fills. So this allows me to basically do a set of keyframes with a character, ink it, color it, render it, done. On to the next shot. That's what I'm trying to do. So in the sketch layer, which by the way, I'm going to actually save this right now because I really always want to be starting out in the sketch layer with the draw pencil and the red pencil. Okay, and so when I start drawing, wango bango, there it is. Okay. So let me see, I'll just go ahead and I guess I'll draw a Kari since she's my the character that I'm working on for the most part in this anime. And here we're going to go, ooh, give her a little bit of a nose thing going on. And I'm going to have her yelling and hollering and that sort of thing. And we got to make sure that we respect the sort of trapezoidal shape for her eyes that we've established. And there we go. That's pretty close. Not necessarily perfect, but now the question now becomes, well, there's a few questions and answers. Number one, if you're going to erase in the Blender Grease Pencil, you can just hit Control. Keep drawing and hit Control, and it just starts erasing. So I think that's a good thing. Number two, what if you want to sculpt? There's basically two ways to do it. I can hit Tab, in which case I can then do proportional editing. Usually I switch to the mouse for that. I like the way the stroke shows up in black and the particular selection shows up orange. I think that's kind of good. It makes, I shouldn't say it shows up black. What happens is all of the individual nodes in the stroke, the points, all show up black. So it shows you what you've grabbed, which I think is kind of useful. What I need to actually figure out right now is how can I hit Control and drag and make this a lasso, because right now it's a box. And it actually appears to be a deselection box. That's interesting. So what I'm going to try to do is get this set up so that when I do Control drag, I get a lasso and I can just grab whatever I want to grab. Okay, now the two key hotkeys that you need to know are Control Tab, because that lets you switch between your, for example, your sculpting tool versus drawing, and also Shift Spacebar. So Shift Spacebar is my way of switching quickly, and by the way, I should be in draw mode to do this, but it's like your sub options are found with Shift Spacebar. So now if I want to do, let's say an arc, okay, so I'm saying I like the arc tool, and so boom, if I were inking right now, which I'm not, I would probably use the arc tool. Now I need to change the default. I don't like 35 as a radius for that, but it's interesting that it appears to me this is still showing as being the draw pencil, and so the radius for the arc is the same radius as the draw pencil. Now that's a little problematic because it suggests that unless I settle on a smaller radius for the pencil, see, because pressure's going on, so I can get it up to 35 pixels, but it pretty much never is. Okay, now another point that could be argued is that, let's go, yeah, we're going to do, well, let's just jump to sculpt real quick. If I go to sculpt mode, then all my sub options are here. My default is grab. I'm not really doing smoothing too much because I'm really going to be accomplishing the smoothing at the inking stage. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go back to the draw tool. And so now the thing I want to keep in mind is that I'm not going to complain too much about the arc tool, because if I was going to be using the arc tool, I would probably be in the lines layer because I'd be doing inking. So then I would use F-draw ink, and let me see. Okay, I'm gonna put this on charcoal ink. It's basically ink that's not quite black. Okay, so now do I need to use the arc tool or not? Well, I've got the active smoothing on up to 0.73. And what that means is that while I'm drawing, it does a darn nice job of straightening out my lines, keeping me from... you can see it sort of... well, actually, I don't think you can see it. Let's see. There's the mouse and there's the drawing. Yeah, you can't really see it, but basically as I'm drawing, the line sort of lags behind a little bit, but the smoothing is really nice. I prefer this to the smoothing afterwards. Now, if you want to do it the old way, you would turn this back down, and then you would do post-smoothing, maybe something like that. So now I'm going to draw a line, and boom, it gets smoothed afterwards. For me, I'm not really seeing that as being all that beneficial. It is a good algorithm, but I don't really need it because I think the active smoothing, let's just put it at 0.8, I think it looks really good. It really smooths things out nicely. So, therefore, I don't probably need to use the arc tool very often. But let's see. If I do use the arc tool, yes, we're in the same situation as before. So what this probably suggests is that I should probably have an ink. I need to set up a new ink pen that has a fixed radius. Alright, so let's go ahead and roll this back to, let's just do 3 and see what happens. Okay, that seems like it's going to be pretty small. Yeah, 3 pixels in Blender doesn't quite feel the same as 3 pixels in other programs. So, which is fine. Let's just find the sweet spot. Okay, that seems a little thin. We'll just jump to 20. Okay, 20 is probably about right. So let's go ahead and escape out of that. I'm going to go to the front view. And I think, yes, for anime, I would say 20 is probably about right. So now the question is, what if I jump back to this? Does this look okay? I would say yes, if the curves are a little more bombastic. Okay, not bad, not bad, not bad. So let's make the curve almost linear. Because what I want is I want the initial line to be thick enough, but then have a little bit of range to just give it a little bit of variation with pressure. So that looks pretty good. So given that, now if I hit the arc tool, not bad. Now I wonder if I hit it, I wonder if I drag softly. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So with that, here's what I'm going to do. I like what I'm seeing with the ink brush. So what I'm going to do is go into edit mode, select all, hit X, delete the strokes, and then I'm literally going to go back to my starting point. Red pencil, draw mode with the draw pencil. Okay, and save my project. So now I've basically recreated my template so that I know that when I am... Okay, and by the way, that needs to be there. Okay, so now the next time I go to use Blender, this will be the correct starting point. Okay, so now, what else do we need to know? I mean, the big things you want to remember are Control Tab and Shift Spacebar. I need to change these hotkeys. In fact, I should make a note of this. I'm going to change the hotkeys so that right now, to jump from key to key, you would hit the down key to go to an earlier frame and the up key to go to a later keyframe. So if I draw something here, and then I come over here, and I go into edit mode, and I select this, so I hit the L key to select linked, and then I move this over here. Okay. Now if I want to jump between these keys, this is the up arrow, down arrow, up arrow, down arrow. For me that makes absolutely no sense. I want to go downstream. That's just the way I think of it. I want to go downstream to the next key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Edit, Preferences, come down here, and I guess the key, it would probably be Next. And I'm looking for Next keyframe. Let's go to Previous. Let's see if we can find it. Previous folder. What the heck would it be? I wish we could search by hotkey. Let's go to keyframe. Yes. Let's go to keyframe. And I think we're going to find it. Yes, here it is. Jump to keyframe. Up arrow, down arrow. Okay. So I want this to be down arrow, and I want this to be up arrow. And that's it. Just save preferences, and we're good to go. Okay, so now, now if I hit my down arrow, I'm going down to the next keyframe, and everything's working as advertised. So up arrow, up arrow, up arrow, and of course I can use right and left arrow to just move one frame at a time. So now things are actually working very, very close to the way I have them set up to work in other applications like Krita and OpenTunes. So that looks pretty good. So now we want to go to draw mode, and because I'm making these little changes in my workflow, I'm going to go ahead and keep saving this template project. Just for the record, I did, because some of you are probably wondering about saving the startup file. Okay, I did save the startup file, boom, like that. But then what happens is, I don't know if it's because this scenario is based on a Blender template, and the template is new 2D animation. Okay, of course, when I use their template, we don't get any of this stuff. There's nothing set up the way I had it. So now, even though I saved the startup file, what we discover, if we simply run Blender again, I'm waiting for it to start up, I'm seeing the console right there, and there it is. Okay, now it worked. Okay, I've saved the startup file like 7 or 8 times, and it's never come up per my template, so that's great. I'm not going to argue. We'll just take what we can get here. So, you know, and I've said this before, but the really good thing about Blender Grease Pencil 2.8 is the tactile character of the brushes is really, really good. Now, if I wanted to modify this brush to be, let's say I wanted it to have a little bit less range, so I don't want it to be like totally thin and gone when I start drawing. I would do that with the curves, I think. So in my sensitivity, probably what I would do is just drag this up. I suspect that will do it. Kind of maybe not. Let's look at it. Yeah, that's more like it. Yeah, that's more like it. I just didn't want it quite so thin. Okay, I like it. So now with that I can hit Tab, select all, delete the strokes. If you hit Tab again, it goes to object mode, by the way. So you really need to use the pie menu to get back to draw mode. So red pencil, sketch. I think everything's good to go. I don't really need this keyframe in here. And save. Save. Blender 2.8 2D animation template. I'm going to save that. And then I'm also going to go into my, sorry, it's edit. It used to be in the file menu. I'm going to edit my preferences and once again save them. Okay. So now let's see what happens. Let's go File, New. And I'm going to go General. Yeah, see, if I go General, it gives me my preferred template. And it should be that these curves, oh, these curves are not. Okay. So I'm going to take these curves and modify them. And now I'm going to go ahead and Go to preferences. I know what the problem is. I didn't save the startup file. That's my bad. So I'm going to save my preferences, and I'm also going to save the startup file. Boom. So now I believe if I go to general now, yes, now we have the curves the way we want them. Okay, so that's it. Hopefully the next video I will actually be rocking and rolling moving forward. Actually, let's try the append operation right now. Okay, so here's what I did before. I went File, Link, and I pulled up the grease pencil data from the work I did last night in Blender 2.79. It made Blender crash. Let's try an append and see if we have better results. So we're going to. We're not supposed to be on the Z drive, you silly goose. Blender and the what did you do? Here's the grease pencil object. Let's append it, and that seems to have worked, but we have to switch now to this and see if it dies. It didn't. Okay, so it looks like all of our keys are there. The question is, that layer's locked. Okay, so we're in good shape, maybe. We can't see our keys, but they do appear to be there. Let's turn on overlays, go back to the camera view, and maybe the problem is that there are no materials. Let's add a material. And she appeared. Very good. Alright, so now let's look at what happens when we hit the space bar. Look at that. That's very good news, folks. That means that I can proceed to get this scene inked and colored in the Blender grease pencil. The only caveat being that I pretty much need to, because I have so many keys, I'm going to have to probably, let's see, which level is this? It should be the sketch layer, I guess. Okay, so yeah, what I'm going to have to do is take the sketch layer and parent it to like an empty so I can scale the whole layer up. And then we'll be good to go. So with that, I'm going to save the actual ink and paint process for another video. But this is a good start. Blender 2.8, for all the complaining I've done, I'm going to say it's getting under control. I've got a good template. It's usable. Let's just forge ahead and see how it goes. The other thing I do need to figure out is how to, I did do some stuff in earlier with background images, you know, for compositing purposes and stuff. And so the 3D view aspect of things, for example, bringing an image in here in 3D space and having it show up properly with a view render, which is kind of what used to be the OpenGL render. Don't have that figured out yet, but I know it's not going to be too tough to figure out. So I think we're in good shape to, unbelievably, maybe start doing more animation with the Blender grease pencil. So that's it for now, and I will continue to give updates as they come up. I am not abandoning OpenTunes. It's just that in order to move forward with the confidence that OpenTunes isn't going to be crashing a lot, I'm going to have to do probably an hour of housekeeping to sort of separate a really long animatic sequence into separate scene files, OpenTunes project files, if you will. And I don't want to do the housekeeping. I really just want to keep forging ahead. So since it's an opportunity to use Blender, I'm going to do so and kind of see how it goes. So anyway, that's it for now.